So I don't know your situation. I don't know what you've been through, what your father's done or hasn't done, or whether how much involvement he's been in your life. But and he don't even need to know about it. But at some point today or anytime, I hope you send him some love and definitely for yourself forgiveness. Those of you in Champions Pride, you understand that forgiveness is freedom, and freedom is forgiveness. And so, this thing weighs several pounds here. We got to just put rock in it, and if you have bad memories and where people did things they shouldn't have done, or didn't do things that they should have done, and you're carrying around all this weight. Now you're trying to become a champion, and you got all these weights, these 5-10 pound weights on your shoulders and on your back. I would never put you in the ring like that as a trainer, as a coach. I would never put a bunch of weight on your back and tell you to go fight and try and win a championship. And you're doing that to yourself. If you got things that people done you wrong, or haven't done things that they should have done, responsible, things they should have done, and you're carrying around all these weights, it's just hard to move through life, and if you take it and you examine it and you look at it and you see all the flaws in it, there's a hole there, and you examine it and you decide, you know what, I'm going to let this go. And you take it and you decide to drop the weight and move on with life and kind of clear the table. You just clear everything off, all this old dirt and salt and these old wounds. And speaking of salt, if you don't do that, what it's kind of like is rubbing salt in your wounds, because you keep on, and that's painful. If you got an open cut, you don't put salt in it. And those are emotional open cuts that you have. With a lot of times it's with your parents. Those are the closest people to us, and they have a lot of impact on us. And so sometimes you just gotta deal with it and clear the table. And when you do that and you start cleaning things up in your life emotionally, it just builds this beautiful platform for you to build a successful life, whatever that you envision as far as success goes, because that word success, that I believe truly that success is different for all people. It's your own picture of it. So it really can't be wrong, and that picture can evolve and change over time. But I do know this, back to the point here, is that if you're carrying a bunch of weight, a bunch of unforgiveness, a bunch of old memories, call them demons if you will, call them old roots, whatever, but if you don't go in and pull those roots out or confront these old demons, or these moments of unforgiveness, if you don't go deal with that, life is just hard to go through. You're carrying all this weight. It's literal weight and baggage holding you down. And if you decide to deal with it, it's like starting over with a clean slate. It honestly, it makes you feel super light as a feather, free as a bird. And when you do that, you just set yourself up to go on and fulfill your true potential. And I believe that in life, we're all here to fulfill our potential one way or another. I think that we have one or two lives. I know there's a quote somewhere. I have it on my dresser, right above my dresser. And it says something to the effect of, we're like fulfilling your potential. Living up to your potential is kind of like your purpose in life. And if you think of that, I just heard a story of an incredible book by a guy named David Goggins, and he spoke of going to heaven and this vision he had where he said it was kind of like God had all these things, and he's telling you, well, your life could have been all these things, but instead it was all these other average things, and it could have been incredible and extraordinary, and you could have done all this with your potential that you were given, that you were blessed with, but instead you went and you lived this average, mediocre, and you didn't fulfill your potential. And back to potential here, and the point is, if you're carrying stuff or dealing with stuff or overlooking stuff, instead of looking in the mirror and examining yourself and becoming very reflective and seeing the flaws in your own character and deciding to confront those and deal with those and fulfill your potential, become the man or the person that you're able to become. And I think that when you start to do that, you clear the table and you begin to lay a foundation of bedrock, a solid foundation that you can build an incredible, extraordinary boxing career, life. There is life after boxing. You know, when I retired, I became a school teacher, and that's been very fulfilling career to me. I love to work with students and help inspire them to fulfill their potential, and that brings me fulfillment, just doing that. And training fighters and coaching people, and now I'm doing online and working with you guys, and it's very fulfilling to me. And there, like I said, there's life after boxing. You're not always, if your big mission and dream is to be a world champion, that's great, and I'm here to help you achieve that and succeed in that. But at the same time, I'm here also to remind you and let you know that at some point we're going to have to hang the gloves up. And sometimes that comes sooner than later, than you may even want it to happen. You know, and you may choose, like I did. I was in my prime when I chose to retire. At that time, I was one of the best fighters. I fought in an international tournament, the World Championships. So that put me among some of the best fighters in the world. And I chose to retire because of this injury I had. From some of you who know my story, being in the car wreck and unable to walk. And I came back from that, and 4 years later was at that elite level once again. But all that training, you know, that elite training in Colorado Springs there at the World Class Athlete Program, it broke my leg down, and I chose that, you know, hey, it's time. I had to have surgery, and I just chose it's time to hang them up. And when I did, you know, I told my coach I'd only been out of the gym for a few months and had just had a couple surgeries, and he said, well, I told him, man, I miss boxing already. And he said, well, this might be your call to coaching. And that was Bashir Abdullah. And a little side story, you know, I'm always going off on these side stories, but what was very interesting about that is I came home, and a month later, I came home and I met a young man. Actually, it wasn't a month, it was probably the next week. I met a young man. He was best friends with my little brother-in-law, Kyle. And I saw Kyle and this other little neighborhood boy named Joe Perez. And I said, you boys want to go to the gym, the boxing gym? And he said, yeah, sure. I took him down there and I started training him. And Joe actually liked it a lot, and he became a young boxer. He was my first student of the sweet science. And that began to fulfill my heart, passing on what I learned over the past 40 plus years now, 41 plus years now. And I've been passing it on. And the one promise I made to Joe is that I'll never stop learning about the sweet science so that I can teach him. And it's not just the sweet science. If you're working with me and you know me, you know it's also about life. And I just happen to attract fighters and warriors, and I love the fight business. Some people see it as barbaric and ugly, but I see it as beautiful, because there's things that happen in that ring that test your courage, test your character, that would never happen in life. It puts life on fast forward sometimes, meaning that it challenges you in ways that there's just no other place to find that type of challenge. And it's because you're taking one man or one fighter's will and you're matching that against another fighter's will. And what that does, the most beautiful moments in the ring. A young man asked me one time, he said, what's the best fight you ever had? And I told him about this fight, It was against a guy named Jason Rogers, who I had fought before and beat. I had dropped him with a body shot in the 3rd round of that fight. And I said to myself, man, I'm stopping this guy this time with body shots. And after the fight, he told me he had never done so much ab work. But he had an incredible coach, Tom Mustin, an Olympic coach, and they had an excellent fight plan. And they just made that fight a lot tougher than I thought it should have been. And I wasn't at the best. I was ill and had a torn bicep. And so I was dealing with some of my own ailments. No excuses. We got in there and we went to war. And for 3 rounds, we went to war. It was the Tacoma Golden Gloves. And it was way over 3,000 people, I believe, in that auditorium. And every one of them was on their feet at the end of that fight. But that young man helped me realize that there was more inside of me than I would have ever realized by myself, because he was such a strong will in a competitive fight. We just fought just right there on a dime in the middle of the ring. We went to war. Near the end of that fight, we were going toe to toe. And we just, at the end of it, we just hugged each other and embraced each other out of respect and love for the sport and one another, just to, it helped both of us realize that there was more inside of us than we could have ever realized alone. And to me, those are the most beautiful moments that can happen in the ring and in your career. And it's just hard to find that in regular life, but I promise you're going to have moments like that in that ring and throughout your boxing career, where it's just going to test you as a person. It's going to test your character and test your will, and it's going to help you realize that there's always more inside. And that's a lesson for today.